predicting every team's over-under win total for the 2024 NFL season. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video on the channel. As you can see, I'm still in Mexico, so the background, the setup, it's not what it normally is, but I decided that I just couldn't wait to make this video. Like, I'm just so excited to make this video, I had to do it today. But anyways, in case you couldn't tell by the title or the cool little intro I made, today we're going to be talking about win totals for the 2024 seasons, specifically the overs and unders set by DraftKings Sportsbook. Now, this video isn't sponsored, but DraftKings, hit me up if you want. Now, in this video, we are going to be looking at every AFC team's win over under total, and I'm going to tell you if they're going to go over or under that. Now, if you guys want a part 2, aka the NFC edition of this, make sure to comment down below. But all right, let's waste no more time. Let's jump right into it with the Cincinnati Bengals. Their over-under total is set at 10.5 currently, and honestly, that is pretty high. But when you really think about it, the Bengals have been a very good team the past several years when Joe Burrow is healthy. I think post his rookie year, the Bengals have been serious Super Bowl contenders each and every year, and unfortunately, that has been, either terminated by the Kansas City Chiefs or by Joe Burrow's health. But when you look at the Bengals schedule, I'm going to pull it up right now, actually, because I think that is an important factor when determining the over-under totals. That's why I waited to make this video until we have the schedule. So starting off the year, they get New England, which is nice. They get Kansas City, which obviously is a big game. And then they get 2 easy games in a row. Washington, Carolina. Obviously, the Ravens are in there. The Giants, I think, is pretty easy. They get the Raiders in Week 9, Eagles Week 8. Their schedule is fairly favorable, I will say. Week 15, they get the Titans. Week 17, they get the Broncos. So their schedule is pretty winnable. Obviously, they have to play the AFC North teams as well. So I think that's kind of a crapshoot when you really think about it, because that division is just so good. I think their season is really going to depend on the health of Joe Burrow. Is he healthy? Can he play, 14, 15, 16 games? If that's the case, I think they definitely go over. And I'm going to bank on the fact that Joe Burrow is able to stay healthy. I'm going to take the Bengals to go over their win total. I'm going to have them at 11 wins in 2024. Next, let's talk about the other AFC North teams. Now let's go to the Baltimore Ravens, because the Baltimore Ravens were the best team in the regular season last year. Lamar Jackson won the MVP, and they were probably a coordinator disaster class away from going to the Super Bowl, truthfully. Their win total this year is set at 11.5, which is really high, and I think that matches a lot of the expectations that people have for this Ravens team. Like I said, they were one of the best teams in the NFL last year, and obviously they lost some guys. They lost Jadeveon Clowney, they lost Stone, they lost whoever. But I thought they retained Justin Madubuike. They lost Mike McDonald as well as a coaching hire to Seattle. But they retained Justin Madubuike. They added Derrick Henry. I thought Nate Wiggins was a great pick in the draft. And truthfully, I think this Ravens team might have gotten a little bit better. I think they did. Now, are you going to get back-to-back MVP caliber seasons from Lamar Jackson? Statistically, probably not. However, I think when you look at this Ravens schedule, there are some things that you do really like. They start the year tough with Kansas City. They get the Raiders, they get the Cowboys, they get the Bengals, the Bills. But then Week 6, they get the Commanders, they get the Buccaneers. Obviously, we know the Browns are going to be tough because that's a divisional game. Broncos. You get the Chargers later on in the year, the Harbaugh Bowl, that will be fun. And then Week 15 and Week 16, you get the Giants and Steelers. So their schedule is not easy by any chance. They do definitely have a first-place schedule. But I think when you add in, just the way that they've been such a successful team the last several years, Lamar Jackson's going to build on his success. Zay Flowers is going to build on his success from last year as a rookie. Derrick Henry, you add into the fold. They still got Roquan Smith. They added Nate Wiggins. I think that 11.5 is definitely risky, and I think that it's probably not the best bet you can make. But I do think the Ravens go over 11.5 wins. I will take them to go over that win total. Now let's talk about the Cleveland Browns over at 8.5 wins for the win total. I'm going to be honest, guys. I don't love this for the Cleveland Browns. I was really disappointed in Deshaun Watson last year. And honestly, ever since he's gone to Cleveland, they've had that bad karma. So I really maybe hope he doesn't turn it around. But the fact of the matter is that Deshaun Watson was not very good last year. This Browns team, I think, is pretty thin depth-wise. I don't love their receiving core outside of Amari Cooper. Nick Chubb is going to be gone for a huge chunk, if not the whole year. Their offensive line had some injuries last year. Obviously, their defense is still great with Myles Garrett, but how many consecutive Defensive Player of the Year caliber seasons can you bank on from a guy like Myles Garrett, right? Denzel Ward is still really good. The Browns, they had really jarring home and away splits last year in terms of their defense, which was kind of hilarious if you think about it. We might have like a Houston Astros situation going on, but their win total set at 8.5, and I'm going to go under that. I just can't do it. I can't pick the Browns to be over 500. And that really, again, just circles back to my lack of faith in Deshaun Watson. He has just been a different quarterback ever since he's been in Cleveland. He is not the Houston Deshaun Watson that we once knew and once loved. And again, I think Kevin Stefanski is fine. The other thing that's going against the Browns is you're in a really, really tough division. The Steelers are always going to be competent. The Ravens and Bengals are legitimate Super Bowl contenders. I think you're just kind of stuck in the mud right now. And unfortunately for the Browns, I'm going to have them going under 8.5 on their win total. Speaking of teams in the AFC North with a 8.5 win total, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, the easy answer is to tell you that they will go over their win total because Mike Tomlin is incapable of going sub 500, and I actually would probably somewhat agree with that. Additionally, I feel like they probably got better. No, they definitely got better at quarterback. Either Russell Wilson or Justin Fields is better than Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph and whoever they were having thrown out last year. Those are better quarterback options. You added some nice, I think, offensive line pieces in the draft. You got rid of Matt Canada. You got Arthur Smith, who I don't think is the greatest offensive coordinator in the world, but he is a significant upgrade from Matt Canada. The Steelers team most definitely got better. Do I think they're a 11-12 win team? No. I think they are 9-8, though. I do think they got better than what they were last year. They made the playoffs last year, so that would tell you that they're probably going to be in the 9-10 win range. I will take the Steelers to go over their win total for 2024. All right, now for the Buffalo Bills going to the AFC East. Their over-under win total projections is 10.5 via DraftKings. Now, I think that is a perfect line for the Buffalo Bills. It's perfect. And it's going to be a hard decision because the Bills most definitely got worse in this offseason. They lost a lot of key pieces. They had to cut a lot of players because their salary cap situation was so out of whack. So structurally, depth-wise, whatever, they got worse. The fact of the matter is, though, is that they still have Josh Allen. And I did really like what they did in the draft, other than giving the Chiefs Xavier Worthy, which, why the fuck did you do that? I thought that drafting Keon Coleman was a really, really smart move. They needed a wide receiver desperately. They got a second-round pick, a future second-round pick for Stephon Diggs, which I thought was good value because he had kind of deteriorated later on in the year. And obviously, your receiving core is very thin at this point. You got Keon Coleman, Curtis Samuel. Obviously, you're hoping that Dalton Kincaid can take that next step at tight end. So 10.5 to me, again, is a perfect line. What I will say, though, is when push comes to shove, when the odds, are either way, when it's 50-50, it's a coin toss, I will lean on this side of optimism for the Bills because of Josh Allen. Josh Allen is a guy, to me, he's the great equalizer. He will get this team 11 wins, probably not 12. I think that's probably pushing it because I think that he is going to just have to be Superman. And he has turned on Superman mode more often than not. There is some moments where the kryptonite comes out a little bit and the turnovers start to get a few too many and blah, blah, blah. But I trust him, I trust him in these situations to really put together an MVP caliber season for the Bills. And that's why I can't have them going under 10.5 wins. I have to go over for that. A team that I'm not as optimistic on is the Miami Dolphins, coming in at 9.5 over-under on their win total. Now, listen, I like the Miami Dolphins. I do. I have no problem with them. I love Mike McDaniel. I think Tua is a fine quarterback. I don't think he's anything spectacular. But the fact of the matter is that the Dolphins have proven the last couple of years to be a team. They can beat up on the bad teams. They absolutely can. But when they go up against the big boys, it kind of looks like they're in over their head a little bit. Going through their schedule, they play Jacksonville, Buffalo, Seattle. Okay, those are maybe 3 playoff teams right in a row. Tennessee, New England, they catch a break. Indy, I think, could be a good team. Then they play the Bills again in Week 9. They play the Rams. They get a break with the Raiders and the Patriots, like I said. Then they play the Packers, the Jets, the Texans, the 49ers, the Browns, the Jets. I mean, that last stretch of the schedule could be all against playoff teams. I have not seen enough from them in terms of how good they are against quality opponents. I don't think that, Tua is able to rise his level of play against those superior competition. And unfortunately, I think, we're looking at a team that's kind of thin at a lot of spots. Right now, they're thin at defensive line. They're thin at interior offensive line with the departures of Christian Wilkins and Robert Hunt. This team, to me, got worse in the offseason. And, that was with last year a fully healthy season from Tua, which obviously I hope he repeats that. But, I just don't know. I just don't have a lot of faith in this Dolphins team to be elite. I think they can make the playoffs. I think they can win 9 games and make the playoffs. But their schedule is not super easy. Like I said, they have big holes at both the interior offensive and defensive line. They can't beat the big teams. I don't know. I'm going to go under on 9.5 for this Dolphins team. Now let's talk about the New York Jets with Vice President candidate Aaron Rodgers. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that. Their over-under win total is set at 9.5, the same as the Miami Dolphins. Now, the thing about the Jets that has been so weird for the last couple of years is that their defense has been really, really good, and their offense has been putrid. Now, everybody thought that was going to be fixed last year when Aaron Rodgers went to the Jets. Obviously, he blew his Achilles. We never ended up seeing any of that come into play. But this year, we're going to have a hopefully healthy Aaron Rodgers paired with a hopefully still really good Jets defense. That would then lead you to believe that the Jets could go over their 9.5 win total. But I'm going to pump the brakes a little bit. I'm going to pump the brakes. 2 things that I think really are going to come into play here. Or 3 things actually. Can this defense be as statistically dominant as it's been for a 3rd year in a row? Maybe not. I don't know. They've been pretty healthy on the defensive side of the ball. Quinnen Williams has been an all-pro. Sauce Gardner's been an all-pro. C.J. Mosley has been good, whatever. Can they do that a 3rd time in a row? Number 2, Aaron Rodgers. Let's assume he stays healthy. Can he be Aaron Rodgers? Because, the question going into last year was his final year in Green Bay wasn't great. Well, now his last 2 years are blown Achilles and not very good in Green Bay. Will he bounce back to be the Aaron Rodgers, or will he just be competent? Now, you could also make the argument that even with just competent quarterback play, the Jets are going to be a playoff team. They're going to win 10 games. I could see that argument. I can. But I'd also, like to bring number 3 to the table, which is they're the fucking Jets. Something's always going to happen. The expectation with the Jets always gets higher and higher and higher, and the disappointment gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Something will happen. Their division is also really good. The Bills, like I said, are really good. The Dolphins can be good. The Patriots, you get what I'm saying? So, the Jets, they're just a team that I think there's too much that could go wrong. There's too much regression that could happen. I just, in good conscience, I can't pick them to win 10 games or more. I'm going to go under on their win total for this year. And then let's round off the AFC East with one of the lowest win totals in the AFC for the New England Patriots, and that's 4.5 wins. Now, again, I think this is a pretty perfect line because I would probably pick them to win 4, maybe 5 games this year. We could take a look at their schedule really quick, but there's just not a lot to work with for Mr. Drake May, unfortunately. There is not. The offense is not very talented. I thought their draft class was pretty good, but so they start the year off with the Bengals, then they play Seattle, then they play the Jets, then they play the 49ers, then they play the Dolphins, then they play the Texans, then the Jaguars, then the Jets. That is a brutal first 8 weeks. That's possibly 8 straight playoff teams that they're going to play, right? The Bengals, the Seahawks, maybe. The Jets, maybe. The 49ers, for sure. The Dolphins, maybe. The Texans, for sure. And then the Jaguars. That is rough. That is pretty rough. Their schedule doesn't get much easier. They still have to play the Dolphins again. They still have to play the Bills, play the Rams later on. So this schedule is pretty fucking brutal. I will not lie to you. I think Drake May is a guy who will probably struggle in year 1 just because the supporting cast around him isn't great. I don't love their new offensive coordinator. I'm blanking on his name. I know he's from Cleveland. And their defense, to me, without Bill Belichick, won't be the Patriot defense that we've been seeing in years past. I'm going to pick them to go under on their win total. Unfortunately, that sounds kind of disrespectful, and it is. In fairness, it is kind of disrespectful. But I'll take them to go under 4.5 wins for 2024. All right, now let's talk about the reigning, back-to-back, defending Super Bowl champions, home of the best player and best coach in the NFL. Their win total is set at 11.5, and you would guess that based on what I just said, I would smash the over, but I'm not. I'm going with the under. 11.5 to me seems a bit rich. Now, the Chiefs are a team. To me, the regular season doesn't really matter for the Chiefs. I don't care if the Chiefs get in the playoffs as the 7 seed or the 1 seed or whatever. Obviously, home field advantage is important to a certain degree. But to me, this is just a completely different team come playoff time. They're just able to flip that switch. They're able to just, play at their A game for the entire duration of the playoffs. To me, the regular season is kind of irrelevant for the Chiefs. 11.5 is a high bar. That would mean they'd have to win 12 games. And last year, there were some dinks in the armor. The receiving core was terrible. Their, running game was pretty inconsistent at some points. Mahomes, looked kind of out of sync for a few games. But obviously they still won the West. Their division is not very hard, truthfully. But I don't know if they win 12 games. I mean, they have a first-place schedule. you have a lot of tough opponents this year. Everybody's going to be gunning for the Chiefs in the regular season. And we've seen teams like the Bills be able to beat the Chiefs in the playoffs, just not be able to do it in the regular season. I'm sorry, the other way around. Beat them in the regular season, but not in the playoffs. So I think this Chiefs team, 11.5 is probably a little bit too high of a bar. I would say 11 wins is perfect. And then, come playoff time, they're just fucking a different machine. Now let's talk about their rivals in the AFC West, the Los Angeles Chargers. There's a lot to be excited about in Los Angeles right now. You got a new coach, Jim Harbaugh, who just won the national championship at Michigan. He drafted the best offensive lineman in the draft. You got Ladd McConkey with that white boy swag. I love it. Their win total set at 8.5, and I think personally they're going to go over. I like the Chargers to win at least 9 games this year. Now I understand, from a roster perspective, from a cap perspective, the Chargers are not in a very good spot, and I totally get that. I'm not really picking them to do much this year. I'm not saying they're like a dark horse Super Bowl team. I get it. I understand how rebuilds work. I don't think that they're going to be great year one. But I do think they will be respectable. Jim Harbaugh has proven that he's a guy that can take over a place and completely shift it around. He did it at Stanford. He did it with the 49ers, his most recent NFL job, and now he's going to do it with the Los Angeles Chargers. One benefit that he already has is he has Justin Herbert, who is a top 5, top 6 quarterback, depending on who you ask. Pretty much everybody will tell you he's top 6 at the very least. And, they've got some pieces. Not a lot, but they have a few pieces. So you combine good coach with great quarterback, good draft. They're going to build up that offensive line for Justin Herbert, which I think that will be the best thing they could ever do for him. And again, you're looking at a respectable 9-win Charger team. I think they do go over. I think their defense will be a problem. Don't get me wrong. But if Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack and Derwin James can stay healthy, again, that's 3 really good players in your defense. I'll take them to win 9 games. I think they go over. All right, now for the Denver Broncos. Their over-under win total is set at 5.5, and I have never smashed an under faster. I'm so sorry. I've just been so critical of the Broncos this year. Broncos fans, it's okay. You can click away. There's timestamps if you want to click. You can do whatever. But I thought the Broncos had a terrible offseason. I thought this is like the textbook definition of we are tanking the 2024 season. Bo Nix, I thought, was an incredibly high reach. They traded for Zach Wilson. What? They didn't sign really any free agents. Quarterback wasn't even their biggest issue last year. Even though Russell Wilson wasn't amazing, it wasn't their biggest issue. They are just in so much trouble. They don't have any really good young players outside of probably Patrick Surtain, who probably wants to get the fuck up out of there. I wouldn't be surprised if he's dealt, by the trade deadline next year. You're in a division with a new Chargers team that's going to be better. Obviously, the fucking Chiefs are amazing. Sean Payton, I think, has kind of lost his fastball a little bit since he was in New Orleans. I'm going to be honest. I don't like a lot about this team. I think 5.5 is a little too generous. I'm going to pick them to go under their win total. Next, we got the Raiders, the 6.5 win over under Raiders. I am kind of a fucking hater, I guess, when it comes to the Raiders. More specifically, Antonio Pierce. I don't think that he's going to be able to be a competent NFL coach. I've said this before. He gives me major Freddie Kitchens vibes. A guy that took over a totally dysfunctional coaching regime halfway through the year, had some nice wins, won over the locker room, and then basically held the front office ransom like, hey, if you don't hire me, players are going to revolt. Max Crosby literally said he was going to request a trade if they didn't hire Antonio Pierce, which is kind of nuts. But to me, he just doesn't have it. They got Luke Getsy, who is, for my money, probably the worst offensive coordinator in the NFL. Pretty bad stuff with the Raiders. Now, I like Christian Wilkins. Their defensive line will be fucking nasty, and I do like Patrick Graham, their defensive coordinator. But when your quarterback options are Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew, you just don't inspire a lot of confidence in me, unfortunately. I thought Brock Bowers, again, was a great player. Didn't make sense for the Raiders at all, in my opinion. Michael Mayer was great. But, yeah, I'm going to take the Raiders to go under 6.5 wins. I don't have a lot of confidence in them this year. All right, let's go to the final division, the AFC South. The Indianapolis Colts over-under is set at 8.5. And I am smashing the over. I am in love with the Colts this year. I am super, super high on Anthony Richardson. I love Shane Steichen. This defense is going to get better with the addition of Laiatu Latu. I think this Colts team is going to be a real dark horse candidate this year to be really, really good. Now, 8.5 is 500, quite literally. So I'm basically betting on them going above 500. I understand the inherent risk of Anthony Richardson and his injury because he was not able to stay on the field last year. I get that, but Joe Flacco is now their backup quarterback, and he has proven to be a competent backup. So God forbid Anthony Richardson has to miss a few weeks. I still decently like their chances. Their schedule isn't completely brutal. It's not the best. It's not brutal, though. And again, I'm so high on Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor and A.D. Mitchell and Michael Pittman. I love this offense. I think they're going to be really, really good. I think 8.5 is kind of a disrespectful line if you ask me. Same thing for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, I am not as high on the Jaguars as I am the Colts, ironically enough. But 8.5 to me still feels a little disrespectful. This is a team that was really good in 2022 and really kind of disjointed last year, even though they still, were right in the thick of the playoff race. I really like Trevor Lawrence. I know that maybe is becoming a lost opinion these days, but I still think he's a really, really good quarterback. I think that this offense, again, if they could just kind of gel a little bit more, if they can kind of get in rhythm, they can be really good. I like Travis Etienne. Brian Thomas is I think high upside pick in the first round. This defense needs to get a little bit better, and they need to address offensive line a little bit, but I still think that they can win 9 games. I think over-under, I'll go over for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Next, for the Houston Texans, maybe I'm just optimistic about the AFC South because I'm also going to take the over for the Houston Texans at 9.5. I think this is a team that is pretty clearly going to win the division this year. C.J. Stroud cemented himself as a superstar in 2023. The guy is legit. I mean, he's awesome. They got better, I think, defensively as well. They added Stephon Diggs. I don't think it's as big of an addition as some people are making it out to be, but it's still nice. Nico Collins had a really good year. Tank Dell's going to come back. They traded for Joe Mixon. I think they had trouble running the ball last year a little bit. That'll hopefully help. But no, I really like this team. I think they're going to build on their success from last year. That's pretty much all I have to say. And then ending it off with a not-so-optimistic note, I'm going to talk about the Tennessee Titans. Their over-under win total is set at 6.5, which is kind of a low line, but I'm still going to go under, unfortunately. You got a rookie coach, a guy who really hasn't had too much responsibility so far in his NFL career. You also got Will Levis, who I'm not completely sold on. Their offense is mid. I mean, it just is. DeAndre Hopkins at this point is not the best. Tony Pollard was not very good in Dallas last year. And I think that one thing that losing Mike Vrabel is going to do for this team is going to cause them to lose their identity because even though the Titans weren't great the last few years, they were always physical. They were always a bunch of tough SOBs. And I think they maybe lose that edge a little bit with Brian Callahan. I don't think their defense is going to be very good. And again, when you're in a good division, it just makes it hard. So these are kind of my over-under win totals for the 2024 season, AFC edition. Again, let me know what you guys want to see for the NFC edition. But I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will talk to you guys later. Peace out.